right. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? Yeah, awesome. So my name is Kathy Sullivan, and I'm a program manager on the Visual Studio platform team. How many of you have been to a tips and tricks talk before? Awesome. Not as many hands as I thought, so that's really good. So this is going to be a pretty fast-paced session. I'm mainly going to cover things in 2013 since we released 2013 last fall. How many of you are on 2013 right now? All right, a lot of hands. Awesome. But I'm also going to show you a lot of the goodies that we released in 2012 because they're very complementary to a lot of things that we did in 2013 as well. Now, obviously, I have more than 60 minutes worth of tips and tricks. And whenever I get to put a talk like this together, it's really hard to pick and choose all the good ones. So there's a lot of other good talks that have been given at TechEd and previous build talks that aren't covering that will cover some of the things I don't cover today. But I tried to take the best of those talks and then also bring you all the new good stuff from 2013. So we're going to start with getting started in 2013. Then we'll go through things like window management and a lot of the good stuff that Windows gives you in terms of how you can manage your IDE instances and all the documents that you might have open at the same time. Then we'll go through how you can more quickly find things and search for things in the IDE. We'll go through a lot of the editor productivity to help you write code faster. And then there's a lot of new good stuff in 2013 on navigating your code and finding out information about your code and who's been doing things with your code and what branch your code is in and things like that. And then there's a couple must-have extensions that are some of my favorites. And then I'll show you how you can give us feedback in the IDE as well, because it's really important that you tell us what you're thinking and the good ideas that you have as well so we can make the product better. Now, I hope at the end of this talk you're going to leave and find yourself more productive in the IDE. Now, you're not going to remember all the things that I'm going to show you today. And so if you've got a pen and paper out, don't feel like you need to feverishly write everything down. In the deck, I'm not going to use the deck after this slide, I think, but I've got a legend here to tell you which version you can find everything in. And all of this stuff is in 2013, but a few of them, all this stuff is in 2013, but a couple of the things I'll show you are in the productivity power tools. So that's why you see this 13 PPT legend. So there's no need to take notes. Now I have some these really neat tips and tricks handouts here. I only have about 50, I think. So, but these are also online. So if you want one of these, come up and get one after. And again, you don't need to take notes because the deck has all the tips and tricks in it after this. Awesome. Sorry about this. Yep, I'm on number 8. Let's see. Sorry, we tried this out and it worked, and it's so I've got it on duplicate. It's 8, yeah.
Let's go ahead and disconnect.
Okay, sure. Technical difficulties. All right, here we go. Awesome. Thank you very much. So for those of you who are on 2013 right now, and you may still have team members who are on 2012, the good news is, like in 2012, you can start editing and modifying those projects and saving them, even though you might still have teammates working on 2012. And this is also true with Visual Studio 2010 SP1 projects as well. So there's really no barrier for you to get up and running on 2013 if you're not already. Now, how many of you are coding on more than one device? All right, yeah, a bunch of you. So imagine that you just get 2013 and you're trying to get up and running, and you've got to make all those customizations that you like. Maybe you have the theme that you like. You have a certain size of your fonts you like line numbers on. You have some custom key bindings. Well, now in Visual Studio 2013, we'll go look in the upper right-hand corner. You can now sign into the IDE with your Microsoft account. So that's an account, a live.com account, a hotmail.com account, or outlook.com, just to name a few. And when you go and sign in, I'm going to go and use my Microsoft account here. And hopefully I've got my complex password in there. So now what you're going to notice is that the IDE changed, right? I am using the light theme here. I like line numbers on by default because I can never figure out where to find them in Tools Options. I've increased the font for today's talk, and then I'm also using the enhanced scroll bar on the right, which I'll show you guys in just a moment. So it's a real challenge to get your environment set up the way you like it, but now you can sign in with your Microsoft account, and we'll take all those settings with you. Now, you might be wondering what settings are you actually roaming, because we're not roaming everything right now. So let me go to Tools Options, and I'll show you the settings that we're roaming. You'll go down to Synchronize Settings, and you'll see here that you can actually disable the synchronization of settings if you choose not to use it. And you can also pick and choose some of the things that you do want to roam. For example, some developers don't like to roam their key bindings because they have different SKUs of Visual Studio installed, or when they're at home, they have certain favorites that they like. So you can pick and choose all the settings that you do want to roam here. Now, while I'm in the Tools Options dialog, this is a really small thing, but it's something that's been asked for a while. You can now resize the Tools Options window. I know. And so like for pages like fonts and colors, which have this huge list of fonts and colors, and you can only see like 5 of them at a time, well, now you can make the window bigger so you can get your work done faster and get in and out of Tools Options. Now, while we're in Tools Options, one more thing I want to point out is we now have the ability to search over the pages. So in the upper left-hand corner, I can access the search box by Control-E, which is the case for all modal dialogues, most dialogues in Visual Studio. Control-E is the shortcut to get up to the dialogue. So if I go and type in something like keyboard, you'll notice we'll filter down all the results and get you to that page a lot faster. Now, we're on a faster release cadence, as a lot of you know. The Visual Studio Update 2 RC came out today, and we want you to be able to get these updates a lot faster. So in previous versions, there was a little balloon that popped up over here. It was a Windows notification balloon, and it said, oh, you have an update, right? It didn't tell you what update you had, and if you happened to be at lunch when it came up, you missed it, and maybe you had to read someone's blog to find out that a new update came out. Well, in 2013, where most things are now these days, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a flag up there. And my flag says, it has 6 next to it. And we call this the Notifications Hub. So if I hover over the flag, you'll see I have 6 new notifications. And then I can click on the flag. And you'll see in here, right now I just have extension and updates, product updates in this Notifications Hub. So you'll notice the first one, this is an update to the Microsoft Advertising SDK. And this is an extension that I have installed. And then if I go down a little further, the Azure SDK, and then below it, the Office Developer Tools. Now, I don't have these installed, and these are product updates. So the Notifications Hub is the place where you can go and see what's new in your environment and what you might want to take action on. Now, if I go and dismiss something, we're also surfacing offline help to let you know you don't have it installed. If I don't care about that thing, I can go and dismiss it, and we're not going to notify you again. Unlike those Windows balloons where they popped up, I think, every 24 hours, and they got kind of annoying after a while. So now you can come in here and you can see what you care about. Let's say if I want to go and install the Office Developer Tools, I can click right on the notification. We're going to take you right to that place. So you can go and install it. We're not going to auto-install anything for you. Now, if I hit Update here and I go install the Developer Tools, we'll remove that notification from the hub, and we won't notify you again until the version number has incremented for those tools. So right now in the hub, I only have informational notifications. If I hover over them, you'll see the severity is informational. But there may be some other more critical notifications. Let's say you're on a trial version of VS and it's about to expire. Well, what you would notice is the flag would turn red, and you would get a critical notification. So right now we don't have, that's only just one example, but you can imagine that over time, if there are things that will keep you from working, we're going to give you a better way to find out what those things are so that you can go and fix them or take action. So let's close this. Now, let's move on to window management. Now, a lot of you are probably working with multiple monitors, and that's really great. You want to be able to utilize all that space, but a lot of times you're moving your mouse around, you're dragging windows over to different monitors, but there's actually a lot of really great built-in Windows shortcuts that you can use to move these instances around and also documents that you're working on. So if I hold down the Windows key and I do Windows left, and I have two instances open, you'll notice that Windows left docks my Visual Studio instance to the left. Similarly, Windows right does the same. And Windows up makes it full screen, and Windows down minimizes it. So let's go and kind of simulate a multiple monitor environment here, since it's a little hard to simulate, but I'm going to go and dock VS to the left over here. And then what I'm going to do is open up something like this account model, and I'm going to drag it over to the right, and Windows right will dock it over onto my second monitor. Now, in 2012, we had the ability to tear off documents and put them on other windows, but it wasn't until 2013 that you could open up, let's see, I'll open up Album and Artist, and now I can multi-select and tear off both of these documents and move them over into my second monitor. Now, I can also go, let's say I just want to work on my right monitor in my model classes. What I can do from here is right-click on Models, and there's an option in the context menu called New Solution Explorer View. Now, when I select this, it's going to create a new instance of Solution Explorer, and I can go and dock it over to my right monitor. So now I have Solution Explorer just scoped to the things that I'm actually working on that I care about. So if I go and open up another file within the Models folder, you'll notice that it opens up on the right monitor because that's what it's scoped to. Now, another thing that I recently learned while I was doing the tips and tricks talk, putting it together, and that's the great part about doing the talk is you learn a lot of things that you didn't even know. How many times have you guys you've taken, the Solution Explorer, sorry about that. Where'd it go? And you accidentally undocked it, and then you put your hand on your mouse, and you're like, oh, I've got to get back into this little spot over here. Well, all you need to do is click on hold the Control key down, and double-click, and it'll go into the other window, but if you ever undock a tool and you need to get it back where it was, hold down the Control key and double-click on it, and it'll just throw it back in line where it was before. So let's go close that. And now what I can do with these documents over here, I can take them, let's say I take order details off, and I can hold down the Control key as well, and double-click on it, and it'll throw it back into the main instance from here. Let's see. So let's go and close all of these out and maximize VS. There's a couple neat tricks that we can do with the taskbar down in Windows. I can hold down the Windows key and Windows Alt, and you'll notice that Visual Studio is actually in the third position. Don't count the Windows Start menu there. And I can hold down, so that's Windows Alt and then 3 because it's in number 3. And I can bring up the jump list for Visual Studio. And then I could use the arrow keys to move throughout there. A lot of times I pin the solutions I'm working on right in here. So Windows Alt 3, and I can move down with my arrow key and just select the solution that I want to open from there. Similarly, I can do Windows Shift 3, and I'm not going to do it, but that'll launch a new instance of Visual Studio. And that's super helpful. A lot of people actually will set VS to launch in administrator mode, and so it'll actually respect that setting that you've made and launch a new instance as an administrator. I can also hold down Windows and then the 3 key, and you'll notice that I can switch between these two instances here as well. So if I'm working with multiple instances, or if I've torn off some documents like I showed you before, those will actually show up in here. And they kind of look like another instance, but they're really not. Now, I'm going to just dock this over here real quick and dock this one to the right. Another subtle thing that we added in 2013, take a look at these, I'll zoom in a little bit, the Visual Studio logo in the upper left-hand corner. You'll see this one's actually grayed out, and the one on the MVC Music Store is actually the VS purple color. So here's how you can tell which instance of VS is actually the active one that you're currently working in. So let's maximize this one again. Now, similarly to applications like browsers, I can hold down the Control key and use Tab to cycle through all of the documents and also the tool windows that I have open in Visual Studio. And then I can also, if I want to sort of clean up things that I'm working on, let's say I want to close a document, but I don't want to move my hands from the keyboard to a mouse, Control F4 is a shortcut to close the document that's currently in your view. Now, another neat way to sort of say I care about a certain set of documents, or maybe a particular one, is something that we call pinning. So I'll zoom in. You'll see on Account Controller and Home Controller that there's a little pin icon on these tabs. And what I've done is I've pinned these two tabs. I find it particularly useful for giving demos, but it's actually really useful in real life, where I can pin these documents to the left, and when I open a new document, so let's say I've opened album.cs, you'll notice that it opens in the first part of my regular document well. So it'll never open up in front of your pin tabs. Your pin tabs will always stay in the order that you pin them. You can also reorder them if you want to as well. So you can activate the pin by hovering over the document tab itself, or you can actually right-click on the tab, the document tab, and then you get a bunch of other useful shortcuts. So things like I can close all my documents I have open, I can close all but this, and I can close all but the pinned documents as well. Now, another neat shortcut that I actually learned while doing this talk was, and actually I'm not going to do it because it will close all my documents, but if I didn't want to have to take my hands off the keyboard to close all the documents, I could do, it's Alt-WL, so I'll do Alt-W, and you'll notice right here that it's in, using our accelerator model here, the L is actually highlighted here. So Alt-WL will actually close all my documents and let me start from scratch. So let's go over to Solution Explorer, and I'm going to click on a couple of these classes here. And if you guys can see, take a look at this tab up here in the upper right-hand corner. It's kind of like a special tab, right? If you notice that as I arrow through these items, you'll notice that that tab gets reused. So if you're not familiar with this tab, we call this tab the Preview tab. And it always opens on the right side. And basically, it's really helpful in keeping your environment sort of clean and tidy as you're looking for something that you want to either open or start working on. And you can imagine that in previous versions, you would double-click on something, it's not what you wanted, you would go back to Solution Explorer, open something else, and before you know it, you have 20 documents open, and you're kind of lost. So the Preview tab will reuse itself, and throughout this talk, you'll see how we reuse the Preview tab to kind of keep your environment clean and tidy for you, but then give you a chance to, when you want to commit it, it's really easy. So I can it's the Keep Open icon on the tab, or I could just start typing in the editor, or Control-Alt-Home will actually promote it to the document well. So I've let VS know that I want to start working on this file, and that I actually want to go and open it. Now moving on, Control-Q, if you guys aren't familiar with Quick Launch, it's in the upper right-hand corner. And Quick Launch is great for finding things in the IDE. Control-Q from anywhere in the IDE will get you to Quick Launch. Now, we actually released the Quick Launch in the 2012 productivity, I think it was the 2010 Productivity Power Tools. And it was a really easy way for you to find things in the IDE. And it was loved by a lot of developers, so we actually moved it into the product. And you'll see me I'll mention a few features I'll show you throughout the talk that we've actually taken from the Productivity Power Tools. We've had developers try them out. They tell us that they love it. We go and improve the feature, and then we move it into the product. So Control-Q from anywhere in the IDE will bring me up to Quick Launch. Now, like I said before, how many of you guys remember where to turn line numbers on? And if you do, yeah, OK, like 2 of you, yeah. So if I type line numbers in here, and then I hit Enter, because I actually know it's the first result there, and you'll notice that it brings me right to the place where I can turn line numbers on. So the Quick Launch, you can use it to search over things that are in Tools Options, but also our main menu, so File, Edit, View. So let's search for something like Debug. You'll actually see that there's a couple groups in this Quick Launch. They have kind of headers. One is Menus, and the other is Options. So you'll see that all the first items in here are actually things that are in our menus. They happen to all be in the Debug menu. And then below it, you have debugging options. Now, there's a lot of things in here. What if I just wanted to scope it down, you might ask? Well, using the @ sign, you'll notice that we have a couple shortcuts to help you scope your search. So if I do it's menu, and then type in debug, you'll notice that it just shows me the items that show up in the debug menu. And similarly, I could type in @opt, and I would only search debugging options and tools options. Now, you'll also see another interesting thing here. I'll zoom in a little bit for you. That this is a great place for you to learn other shortcuts. So if there's a command that you use a lot and you're like, hey, I wonder what that shortcut is, try Quick Launch out and see if you can sort of pick up that shortcut over time. Now, the Quick Launch is also fully extensible. So I'll show you later if I have a little time, but the Productivity Power Tools for 2013 actually have some quick tasks in there that you might find pretty useful. So that's one example of how we've extended Quick Launch internally. All right, so other places in the IDE where we've added search. Now, we've added search in a couple places like tool windows and modal dialogues. The first one I want to cover is Search in Solution Explorer. So my focus is currently in the editor, and Control semicolon brings me over to the Solution Explorer search. And once my focus is in there, I can start typing something like album. And you'll notice that it'll filter down my results, and it'll highlight the results that have been returned to me. And they're across a couple things. They're across files and projects and folders. But there's also some other things in here that it's highlighting that I'll show you in just a moment. Now, while I'm in this search box, Alt down arrow brings up that little down arrow on the side, and I have some options on how I want to perform my search in here. So if I turned off search within file contents, it would just show me those things like the solution name, folders, and file names, and actually the project as well. Now, I'm going to bring up, I use Quick Launch a lot to just open things. We've also added search to, and then this was in 2012, we added search to the error list as well. So now you can search amongst all your errors if you're looking for something in particular. And we also have filtering in the error list while we're here to show you that. So you can filter to just the files you have open, the current project, or the current document that's in focus. Let's see, Control quote is the shortcut to get to the search box in Team Explorer. And I find this one particularly useful if someone comes by my office, they're like, hey, Kathy, can you check out this bug? And I'm busy doing something, so Control quote. And I can search for work items here. And so from anywhere in the IDE, Control quote will get me to the search box in Solution Explorer. Now, search and modal dialogues. Let's bring up the new project dialog, which is Control-Shift-N is the shortcut to get here. And like I showed you in Tools Options, Control-E is the shortcut to get up to the upper right-hand corner. And we're still seeing a lot that folks don't know that they can search in the new project dialog. We have a lot of project templates. I think we have over 400-something project templates that we ship with VS. And you can't possibly know where they all are. So using search can help you find things and drill down into a short subset of projects so that you can quickly get started faster. There's also search in, let's go to the Add Reference dialog. And again, the same thing, Control-E is the shortcut to get up here. So as I start typing, you'll notice that, you'll notice that as I would start typing, that it would keep filtering down my results. And then I can use Tab to move amongst all the panes here. So I use Tab to move into the middle. And then I can hit Enter and add that reference very quickly. All right, so the next thing is how to find things more easily within your code. So let me find something a little more interesting to open here. So Control F, which I imagine a lot of you are familiar with, is find in Visual Studio. But since 2012, it's been looking a little different. And basically, we have an in-document placement in the editor to keep the find dialog out of your way. In previous versions, it would pop up on top of your code. You might have to move it off to the side so that you could keep working. So now it's docked in the upper right-hand corner of the editor. And you'll also see that the final results are now highlighted in this sort of orangey gold color as well. And I can use Enter to cycle through these results. Now you'll see that it actually jumps below the fold here. So I can use Enter to cycle through all the results, and Shift-Enter is actually the shortcut to go backwards. So in Visual Studio, usually we follow this, but if you want to do something in reverse, Shift key plus the shortcut is the way to do something in reverse. So here, Enter is the way to go forward, and Shift-Enter is the way to go backwards. So now, when I'm done with my my find, I can hit Escape, and we'll just close the find dialog, and it kind of gets out of your way there. Now, let's go back to Solution Explorer, back to the main view here. And I like to work a lot with these model classes because they really showcase the power that Solution Explorer has now. I can go and expand the album class, and you'll see now that I can see all the types and members that are inside this class. So Solution Explorer, since 2012, has combined a lot of the power from the object browser window, the class view, and the call hierarchy window, and brought a lot of this right to your fingertips here. So just like how earlier I did a right-click on models, I could right-click on album, and I could scope Solution Explorer to just looking at my album class and then the members within it. Now, since I've sort of browsed away from my main view, hold down the Control key, and the left arrow will bring me back home. Now, as I use the down arrow, you'll see that in the editor, it's actually jumping to match that as well. And this is super helpful if I'm not using the Preview tab now, but you can imagine if I was using the Preview tab and I was browsing through these types of members that I wouldn't need to open a lot of things as I'm just sort of looking through some of my classes here. Now, I can also right-click on some of these, the classes and the types and members, and I right-clicked on album ID, and I have the options that have come from the call hierarchy window for calls and is called by. So if I select calls, actually, sorry, that was a bad example. Let's right-click on is called by. You'll notice that add to cart is where album ID is called by. And similarly, I can use the down arrow, and it's going to jump right to that location. And we happen to use the Preview tab for that view as well. So Control left arrow is the way to get home from here. Now, in Solution Explorer, if I want to open a lot of things at once, I can hold down the Shift key, and I can select a bunch of files. I can also hold down the Control key and just select the ones that I actually care about. Now, there's also a couple really interesting, helpful commands in here. Opening a command prompt and then opening the containing folder of this file. And those are actually part of the productivity power tools for 2013. So traditionally, you'd have to right-click on one of the document tabs up here to go and open the containing folder. But now you can do a lot of that right within Solution Explorer. Let's see. So I forgot one thing about search that I just want to sort of backtrack real quick. The search in Solution Explorer supports Pascal case searching. So I can search for something like SC, and you'll watch it. Let me just collapse this project. And you'll see where something like store controller, where S and C are the capitalized letters in my class. So let's see. Now, one other thing I want to show you in Solution Explorer, I have my focus in the editor, and I can sync to the active document in Solution Explorer. And so what that means, the shortcut is Control square bracket S. And you'll notice that in Solution Explorer that it jumped right to that location in Solution Explorer for the checkout controller.cs file. So even if I had the controllers folder collapsed, it would actually expand that folder, and it would jump right to that location. All right. So another really helpful thing in Solution Explorer are these things called filters. and I'll zoom in a little bit here so you can see. The first one is the pending changes filter. And so if I select the pending changes filter, you'll see that Solution Explorer is just scoped to the one file that I actually have a pending change in. Similarly, I can also just scope Solution Explorer to files that I actually have open in my document well. And then I can also scope Solution Explorer to look at things that have errors in them. And this is actually part of the Productivity Power Tools in 2013. And I'll show you that in a little bit. So let's go back home. Oops. I still have my filters on there. Cool. All right, so let's move on to some tips and tricks that you can do in the editor to help you be more productive. Now, I'm going to zoom in on the upper left-hand corner, and you'll see these two, one of them is blue, and these are our backward and forward navigation arrows. And there's actually shortcuts to access them, but I'll show you real quick using the mouse. So what we did in 2012 was we actually flattened this list. Prior to 2012, it actually was a hierarchical list, and it was a little hard for a lot of folks to navigate through the list, so we just flattened that list out. And so the shortcuts, I'll hover over them, but you'll see that they're Control minus and Control Shift minus in the true spirit of using Shift to go backwards. So if I do Control minus, you'll notice that it opens in the Preview tab, and it jumps back to the file that I previously had open. Now, another couple set of tricks that I picked up this week as well, which I'm probably going to use a lot now. How many times have you wanted to jump to a different tool window that you don't have in your focus right here? Well, you have to take your hands off the keyboard and move to the mouse. Using Alt F6, you can cycle through all of the tool windows that you have open, even if they're not pinned or docked. So that's Alt F6. Now, you can also get to the toolbar within this tool window. So I'm in Solution Explorer. And again, if I wanted to go up to the toolbar, I would have to move my hand from the keyboard to the mouse. But Shift-Alt is the shortcut to move from within the contents of a tool window up to the toolbar. So you'll now see that I'm moving my focus around in the Solution Explorer toolbar up there. Now moving my focus back to the editor, there's these drop-downs that are at the top of the editor. And they're actually really helpful, but again, you have to use the mouse. You would normally have to use the mouse to get to them. Now, using Control F2, I can bring them up, and I can use Tab to move throughout them, or Tab to switch between the two. So Control F2 will bring my focus up into these. We call them the navigation drop-downs. All right, so let's move on to, I'm going to go back to my home controller. Actually, sorry, I'm going to go to this one. And I want to talk a little bit about auto brace completion, which is another feature that we brought over from the Productivity Power Tools from 2012. Now, I'm going to go and write another method called logoff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add I'm going to add my first curly brace. And you'll notice immediately after I add the first curly brace that Visual Studio will go and complete it by adding the second one. So when I add my first curly brace, Visual Studio goes and completes it and adds the second brace. So you can see how this is going to help you write more complete code and to write code a lot faster. Let's see. Now, oh, it actually looks like I already have a logoff method here. So if I wanted to bring up this error and quickly fix it, I can use Control Dot here. Actually, I can't. Sorry, I can't do it there. I'll find another example. But let's move on to something else. So when you're thinking about cases where you might want to refactor a lot of your code and you want to quickly move some code around without taking your hands off the keyboard, I can hold down, let's say I just want to move this single line. I can hold down the Alt key, and using the up and down arrow, I can move this around. But I probably want to take all those other lines with me. So if I go and highlight this entire method, hold down the Alt key, and using the up and down arrow, I can quickly move around either a single line or a couple lines of code. And we call this move line up or down. It's pretty obvious. So next, I showed you when I synchronize my settings that I have this enhanced scroll bar. It's a big scroll bar, right? And I can customize the scroll bar by right-clicking on it and going down to scroll bar options. And you'll see here that I can customize what shows up on this scroll bar, and it's under this display section. So the scroll bar is going to show me a lot of information about what's going on in my code. We call these annotations. So I can see things like changes, where I've made changes in my code. I can see things like marks and errors. So marks, the marks are things like bookmarks that I might have made in my code, or things like breakpoints as well. And then it'll also show me inline errors, and it'll show me where my current caret position is. And then below in the behavior section, I can choose what kind of scroll bar I want, what kind of size I want. And then there's a checkbox for the preview, which is essentially this hovering over. So if I hover over my code, you'll see that I get this sort of zoomed in view of it. And now I can make a better choice of where I want to go before I actually click on it and commit to jumping to that location. So up here, you'll see that I have these sort of red and maroon ones are my breakpoints and my errors. And the blue line that's going across is actually where my current caret position is. And then you probably noticed some of these little bubbles, these like blue bubble things. And those are actually called structure visualizers, and those are in the 2013 Productivity Power Tools to give you a better idea of what kind of structures you can find within this code file. So let's move on to Navigate 2. Now, the rest of the things I'm going to cover now are specific to 2013. So how many of you use Navigate 2, Control, Comma? All right, well, if you're not using it, you're missing out. So Control, Comma, and let's go to the shopping cart. Much like the Find dialog that we introduced in 2012, Navigate 2 is now in the document in the upper right-hand corner. So we're kind of using that same UI where it's in document placement in the upper right-hand corner, and it has sort of a drop-down with a navigation model through it. So I can use the up and down arrow to move throughout here. You'll notice that we're utilizing the Preview tab here to keep your document well nice and clean and tidy. Now, I have some icons on the left to help me figure out whether it's a method I'm looking at or a class file. And then I have the name of the search result that's returned and also the path here as well. So after I'm done using Navigate 2, Escape is the way to close out of it and to get back into your code. All right. So moving on, I'm going to show you CodePeek. How many of you have used Peek? OK, not that many of you. Awesome. So imagine that you have a new code base. You're trying to learn it. You're trying to figure out what's going on. And much like the Preview tab keeps your document well nice and clean and tidy, Peek is also going to help you go to a definition without having to open that file. So let me switch over to the other instance I have here. And let's see. I'm going to put my cursor on this USGS service proxy. And much like you would hit F12 to go to a definition, which would actually open up it would open up the file that contains the implementation of this, Alt F12 brings up this Peek window. And the Peek window is inline. It sort of pushes your code out of the way to make room for the window. It has a full-fledged editor in it. You notice that it has my line numbers. It has all the colorization that I expect in the editor. And it's also using the enhanced scroll bar. So I can go and hover over things and get a preview in the Peek window just like I could in the editor. Now, if I want to go and open this Peek window, I can promote it to a real document just like I can with the Preview tab. Now, within the Peek window, I'm going to click on Earthquake Event. I can Alt-12 on Earthquake Event and keep going deeper into my code or going across it. And you'll notice that as I do that, I now get a breadcrumb to tell me where I was, much like the navigation in the upper left-hand corner of the IDE. And there's actually some shortcuts to help you navigate through here. And you can hover over those arrows to see them. they're Control-Alt-minus. And if I could get the other one to come up, it's Control-Alt-equals as well. So Control-Alt-minus, you'll notice that I can go backward and forward using those shortcuts without taking my hand off the keyboard. Now, you can also edit within this peek window, which is something that we introduced at the end of 2013. So I can go and make some changes inside the peek window, and then I could save these changes, and escape is a way to close the peek window out. All right, so I'm just going to open up my Test Explorer and make sure that a bunch of these tests have run. Oh, because I created that error, which is fine. And then, just 1 second. All right, so the last thing that I want to show you today is what we call code lenses. Now, we know that sometimes it's hard to see what's happened with your code, right? I showed you a lot about how you can better understand your code and make better decisions about navigating to places within your code. But how do you get a good view of what's happened with your code? Who made a check-in on this particular method, right? What branch did this come from, right? Are there any bugs associated with this? So what you'd have to do is you'd have to go into Team Explorer, and you'd probably have to take a bunch of information from different tool windows and sort of piece all that information together. So with code lens, which you can actually see them right above line 19, and I'll talk to you in just a second about what each of those are, but now you have sort of a heads-up view of what's been happening with your code base. Now the shortcuts to get to these lenses, you hold down the Alt key, and you'll see that these key tips appear above here. So I could hold down Alt and press 2, and now using the references code lens, I can see all the places where I'm referencing this main page view model. And I could use, Alt 2, and then I can use the arrow key to move throughout these, and then Enter would go and actually open that file. So Alt 3 brings up all my tests, and you'll see that one of my tests is failing, so what I could do is I could click on it and get to it really fast from here. Now, I can hold down an Alt key when I have the code lenses open, and you'll notice that the right and left arrow key tips come up, so now I can cycle through all of the code lenses that I actually have available to me. If I go back to this lens, I'm actually the author of the solution, and you'll see that I have two changes here as well. It shows me the ID, the change set ID, the comment I made when I checked it in, and then some information about myself, which is not particularly interesting. But if I hover over it, you can see some of that information as well. And then from here, I could get to the diff of the changes I made. Or if I went to change set details, it would open up the pending changes window, and then I could really drill into the changes that I made. And then I could also send an email to the author or the person who last changed this particular method. Now, I can right-click on these lenses, and I'll zoom in for you guys. And a lot of these lenses are hooked up to your Team Foundation instance. So in the cases where you have these change sets that are coming in, or you have bugs or work items here, you're going to want to refresh these lenses, so you can right-click on the lenses and refresh them from there. Now, you also may have noticed that there are some options for code lenses, which are in Tools Options. So if I select the code lens options, you'll see that in Tools Options, I can disable code lenses if I choose, or I can pick and choose the lenses that I do want to show up on the editor. Let's see. Now, one last thing is that I can also undock, I can pop out any of these lenses. So if I select this one, you'll now see that the code lens references becomes an actual tool window. So if I actually want to keep it open and I want to look through this, there is a great way to go and undock all of those lenses and put them somewhere else in the IDE. Let's see. All right, so we've got a few minutes. The next few things I'm going to show you are specific to the Productivity Power Tools in 2013. So in my Solution Explorer, you'll see that I've got some squigglies under my solution name and then also under some of the files over here. So in the Productivity Power Tools, we've introduced inline errors into the Solution Explorer. So I can hover over these errors, and I kind of get an error list that pops up to the left of them. And I can pick and choose things like just looking at errors, just looking at warnings, or just looking at messages as well. And then from here, I could go and select that error and jump to that location and quickly make that fix that I want to go and address. Let's see. So I showed you those things. Let's see. So I'll show you some of these quick tasks that are up in the upper right-hand corner here. Actually. And I can do something like, so these quick tasks on the Productivity Power Tools page in the Visual Studio Gallery. There's a whole list of these other kinds of tasks that you can go and implement from, execute from the quick launch. One example here is if you're doing some presenting or doing some demos, there's now options to use presenter settings. So you can quickly switch in and out of these presenter settings right from within Quick Launch using the tasks as well. Let's see, one more other neat add-on that we recently released is called the Bing Code Search for C#. So if I just start, let's see. Actually, it's not showing up here. Let me go back to this one. Yeah, so let me zoom in a little bit for you. So you'll notice that I just started typing. And in IntelliSense, I get this option that says, how do I? And what this Bing code search for C# extension does is it goes out to places like MSDN and Stack Overflow and C# 411, and it goes and pulls in code snippets that you can use right in the editor. So let's see, if I just, sorry, I already typed that. I can go select how do I, and now you'll see that the Bing code search uses the peek window. And so I could go type in something like, let's see, read lines from file. And, oops, it's just a little slow. And you'll notice that it brought in a code snippet in here that I could go and pull into the editor. And I can also look through a couple options. Looks like I have 19 here. And I can look at the source of where they're coming from. And I also get to see a rating of what they are. Cool. So let's close this. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is how you can give us feedback and how we can make the product better. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a little quote bubble up there. And you can click on that. And here you can send us a smile, or you can send us a frown. Or you can also quickly report a bug here. And the bugs go right to it'll bring you right to our Connect site. So if I select send a smile, I can go and add my comment in here. And then I can also I can also include a screenshot here as well. And those are really helpful on the product team when we're going through and trying to understand what kind of issue you're encountering or what you're exactly seeing. So if you have things you're thinking of as you're working, send a smile or send us a frown are really good places to send us quick things. We're constantly looking at this feedback as it comes in, every few hours all day long. So it's a pretty easy way for you to give us really quick feedback. And like I mentioned, for bugs, you can go out to the Connect site. And then I have all these in the deck later. For suggestions, if you have a really great idea or you'd like to see us do something differently, we're actually collecting suggestions on our user voice site. So I'll actually I'll bring that one up on here. Yeah, so visualstudio.uservoice.com is where you can go and tell us things that you'd like us to do differently or ideas that you might have that can make the product better. Now, all the tips and tricks that I showed today are on this first link here, and there's a couple other good resources for finding out how to work more efficiently and be more productive in the IDE. And then you guys have probably seen some of these, but we have a bunch of special offers for MSDN Ultimate subscribers. And obviously, your feedback is really important to us. So please do fill out your evaluations. And I think that might be it. So yeah. What was it? Yes, sorry about that. These ones right here? Cool. All right, so I have a bunch of the tips and tricks here. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'll also be at the booths that are, actually we are on the 3rd floor. I'll be at some of those booths today and tomorrow. So let us come by and tell me what you think. Thank you. Yes, it will be recorded, yes. Thank you.